Status Quo was formed in 1962 under the name The Scorpions by Francis Rossi and Alan Lancaster. However, this name didn't stick around for long. Their drummer at the time, Alan Key, was quickly replaced by John Coughlin, and the name changed to The Spectres. Soon after this, they fell under the management of Pat Barlow, a budding pop music manager who helped them get gigs around London. However, in 1965, their keyboard player, Jess Jarofsky, was replaced by Roy Lines. Later that year, however, they met Rick Parfitt, who was playing under a cabaret called The Highlights. Under the name of The Spectres, they released 2 singles in 1986, these being Hurdy-Gurdy Man and I Who Have Nothing. This was followed by We Ain't Got Nothing Yet in 1967. With little success, the band delved more into psychedelia, and this is when we saw Rick Parfitt join the band. Finally, their name changed to the legendary Status Quo. In 1968, the band released their first hit single, Pictures of Matchstick Men. This reached number 7 in the UK charts and is a sort of poppy, psychedelic kind of song. It's got phasing guitars, weird sort of vocals, but a strong melody that the band would use as sort of one of their selling points for the years to come. Despite this though, the song never quite reached the same performance in the US, something that would stick with them for the rest of their career. After an unsuccessful single in Black Veils and Melancholy, the band scored a number 8 charter with Ice in the Sun. Bob Young was soon enlisted as a roadie and tour manager, but became instrumental in crafting some of their biggest hits. The next era of the band can be described as somewhat of a turning point. 1969 saw the release of Spare Parts and the swift abandoning of the psychedelia of their Matchstick days. Although their next 2 albums performed poorly, these being Mark Kelly's Greasy Spoon and Dog of Two Head, released in 1970 and 1971 respectively, the 2 albums have some great songs. April, Spring, Summer and Wednesdays, In My Chair, Railroad and Gordon Mueller are all great songs that showcase the sort of boogie rock that they're sort of progressing towards, but also the sort of softer side and sort of more, I guess, obscure side with Gordon Mueller a bit. Finally, however, the band found their breakthrough with their 1972 album, Pile Driver. Paper Plane was arguably the biggest hit from the album, scoring a number 8 spot on the UK charts, although there is still plenty to enjoy, including songs like Don't Waste My Time, Big Fat Mama, and a cover of Roadhouse Blues that became a staple of their live performances. They followed up this album with Hello, a more well-rounded album compared to their previous one, but one that toned down the heaviness. This album focused more on the melodic hooks in songs like Caroline, Blue-Eyed Lady, Roll Over Lay Down and 4500 Times. These are all songs with fantastic guitar work and ones that would remain popular even through the band's entire career. I always think that the next album, Quo, is a little bit of an enigma to me, as I always think it's kind of less mature when compared to Hello. It sounds kind of reminiscent of Pile Driver, to be honest, but I don't know, it's in a bit of a weird spot. I feel like, I don't know if this is true necessarily, but I think they might have recorded it maybe earlier or started conceptualizing the ideas, although considering how fast the albums were moving at this time, it's quite unlikely, and I think it just, I don't know, maybe they dipped their toes back into sort of the heavier boogie rock for a bit. But yeah, there's still plenty of songs to enjoy here. Songs by Alan Lancaster, some country-esque tracks by Francis, and my personal favourite by Rick, and that is Lonely Man. On the Level, released in 1975, seems like a blend of their previous 3 albums, but one that advanced their sound with excellently produced tracks like Down Down and Over and Done. Down Down remains the band's only UK number 1 single credited to their name to date. Following this, 1976, Andy Bound joined the band, however he did not officially join the band until 1982. This year also brought an album that leaned more into the boogie rock with Blue For You. Wild Side of Life and Mystery Song are arguably some of the best tracks here, and ones, again, that would remain popular through their entire career. These songs showcase the ability to dip more into country, and again, cover songs, and the band's psychedelic roots now and again. The following albums from this are all very consistent, well produced, likely as a result of the introduction of producers like Pip Williams, Roger Glover and John Eden, who later did remixes for Rockin' All Over the World. So Rockin' All Over the World was a track written by John Fogerty of Creedence Clearwater Revival originally, and this became one of the band's most anthemic hits. I would argue that the album of the same name is probably one of their best. It's very well rounded. Songs like Dirty Water, Hold You Back, there's just like so much there that I would say it's my favourite. I'd get my vinyl out, but I can't reach it. But yeah, I think this is seriously one of the best albums. And if you're not a fan of Status Quo, if you've just tuned on to this video from somewhere else, go listen to that album all the way through, and the remixes if you want. But If You Can't Stand the Heat was the next album, and it doesn't really have as much going for it as their previous album, but it does seem to be sort of a steady progression towards a softer kind of rock, especially towards the 80s. Whatever You Want changed this up a little bit, however. Perhaps there are some more progressive songs like Breaking Away, and sort of softer tracks as well, like Living on an Island. However, the titular song, Whatever You Want, of course, is probably one of the band's most influential songs of all time, alongside Rockin' All Over the World, Caroline from Hello, and things like that. It's definitely just a great song. And again, it's one of these things where if you haven't listened to Status Quo, it's one of the ones you kind of need to listen to. Following on from this, Just Supposing and Never Too Late are almost like sister albums with very similar sounds. What You're Proposing, Don't Drive My Car, Something About You Baby I Like. These are all classics from these albums and definitely worth a listen. Following on from this, from 1981 onwards, it would be surprising to see that the band would experience turmoil after such a significant and successful string of albums. However, tensions had been brewing in the band for some time. John Coughlin left in late 1981 and was replaced by Pete Kircher. Alan Lancaster soon followed after a tumultuous time during their End of the Road tour. A lot of this turmoil came from disagreements between Alan and Francis, although Alan states that Francis himself didn't want to work with either Alan or Rick. Again, many of these disagreements came from musical disagreements during the recording of 1982 and back to back. I've seen a number of interviews where it's basically that Francis essentially wanted to go sort of towards the softer side of rock, and Alan, who again, you'll know him for songs in the earlier Quo albums like Just Take Me and Backwater, sort of wanted that heavier kind of rock, and so this was a big sort of sticking point for these two members of the band particularly. Replaced Pete Kircher and Alan Lancaster respectively, Jeff Rich and John Rhino Edwards were brought in, two talented artists who had helped Rick Parfitt record an unreleased solo album. Although In the Army Now, which released in 1986, saw a successful single and album release, I believe that the band declined after this period of time. Ain't Complainin' and Perfect Remedy are fine albums, but much of the band's work in the following years seems almost lost amongst the rest of their catalogue. Matt Letley also joined the band as their drummer in this time. Heavy Traffic, In Search of the Fourth Chord, and Quid Quo Pro are all standouts from this era, sporting songs like Beginning of the End, Heavy Traffic, and Dust to Gold as the standouts. Although, after this we got Bula Quo, which was an album associated with a film starring Francis and Rick, and to be honest, I haven't watched the film, but from what I've seen, the less said about this the better. After the reunion tour in 2013, the band enlisted Leon Cave as their new drummer and released two acoustic albums, Acoustic 1 and 2, which sported acoustic covers of much of their previous work. However, after a variety of health scares over the years, Rick Parfitt retired from live work in October of 2016 and passed away on Christmas Eve 2016. Richie Malone, who had previously played in place of Rick Parfitt, took over the reins as top rhythm guitarist and would continue to play with the band to the present day. Their most recent album, Backbone, sees some successful songs, like Liberty Lane, and a refreshing take on many of the musical themes of previous albums. However, I do think that the production on this album is somewhat bland. I said this during my review, that essentially I just thought it seems a little bit like mechanical, I would say. But there is some good songs, especially the one by Richie. However, again, in September 2021, we also saw the death of Alan Lancaster, who passed away, sadly, following a long battle with multiple sclerosis. The band continue to tour to this day and are currently on their Out Quoing tour following a long hiatus from touring thanks to COVID. Great. I doubt that this will be their last tour, as it seems like touring is very successful for them, and is also just something fun that they like to do. They always seem to have fun on stage, and they have done for many years, and yeah, I'm not sure they'll release a new studio album. There was a single they released following Backbone. I can't remember the name of it now. That forgettable, I'm sure. But it just seems like, I mean, just to add an anecdote here. I attended a concert in February, and all I can say is that the new songs don't really have the same draw to the audience, especially ones like Backing Off. Like, I love Backing Off as a song, but it goes on, and I think that the audience kind of gets a little bit tired of that. Like, a lot of their older work seems to hold that attention a lot longer. So something tells me that they might only release an album for, I don't want to say for the money. I know Francis has said that in some interviews at some point, that they do like doing things for money because, you know, pays the bills, of course. But I just think, I don't know. I don't know if they would release another album. It's yet to be seen. But yeah, their tours seem to keep the band going, and again, I'm saying this from personal experience that they always seem to bring in a wide variety of people, young and old, new fans, kids even, and you know, I think really that the band are probably as strong as ever. Like, they're not going to be able to recreate the glory days of rocking all over the world. They're not going to be able to bring out these fantastic sort of game-changing albums for their career because, I mean, Francis is getting on, and Andy, the other long-time member, you know, is getting on as well. But, you know, as long as they're having fun doing it and it's something they want to keep doing, who's to stop them, really? But yeah, I think they'll just continue to rock till they drop, perhaps forever. But yeah, I've been Will. I just want to give a big thanks. This video has been a bit tangential at times, but yeah, I really want to give a huge thanks to everybody who watched this video. I did make a Status Quo documentary some years back, but it was about 6 minutes long, and I didn't particularly like it. And I'm also trying to move away from sort of copyrighted content in these documentary kind of videos, because I've just recently got monetized. Thank you to everybody for watching the videos, because that has helped me to get monetized. But you know, sort of these longer documentary kind of videos that are more popular tend to get a lot of views. I will admit that. And again, I'm very grateful for the support on these videos, but a lot of them I used to put snippets of songs in, snippets of tour clips, things like that, music videos, and they would all get copywritten, and it's quite annoying. So you're going to have to endure my ugly mug for a bit while I figure out the best way of making these documentaries going forward in a way that is sustainable for monetization, of course. I will still be doing covers. Many of these, or in fact most of them, get copywritten, so it's kind of just something I enjoy doing anyway because I'm a guitarist at heart. Excuse me. But yeah, so expect more documentaries, expect more covers, because I've got more time now that I finished university, and I'm sure you don't want to hear about my life, so you know, I'll stop with the stories. But here we are. Thank you for watching. That's been the story of Status Quo. A winding career full of drama, and thank you. That's all I can say. Peace.